Lando Norris was tremendously disappointed after the results of the French Grand Prix. Yes, McLaren did make a step forwards with their updates, but it didn't bring what Lando hoped for. He was clearly too slow for Alpine driver Alonso and had to look in the mirrors at the end of the Grand Prix. After a great fifth place during qualifying, Lando hoped he could stay close to Mercedes during the race. When Will Buxton, host of F1 TV, interviewed Lando Norris after the race, he asked whether the car felt faster during the race and whether he was happy with the progress. Norris admitted that he expected more out of the updates. What is more reason for concern is that this is their last major update of the season. It must be frustrating for Norris, who signed a long-term contract with McLaren till 2027. After 2 great years where Lando was found on the podium on a regular basis, he definitely expected more of his team in 2022. Who wouldn't? The new regulations were a great opportunity for the team out of Woking to make a big leap and find themselves at the front of the field again. But none of this came true. On the contrary, McLaren built a mediocre car that is far off the pace of the front runners. The budget cap doesn't make it easier, as the lack of budget slows down the car's development. This is true for all teams and therefore makes the lead of the top teams so valuable. Norris is seen as the rising star of McLaren, who faces a difficult task of bringing the once so successful team back to the front of the field. His contract doesn't include an exit strategy, so as long as McLaren keeps him to his contract, Norris is stuck at McLaren till 2027. Did Norris do well to sign such a long-term contract without an exit clause? Why is the McLaren car lacking so much pace? Will they do better in Hungary? And can Norris keep his frustration under control? Let's find out. There is no doubt that Norris is one of the most talented drivers of F1 at the moment. Norris, who entered the Formula One in 2019 as a 20-year-old rookie, quickly gained the hearts of many fans through his jokes and positive mentality. Some had doubts whether Norris was good enough for the Formula One, but he managed to be a quick learner and his talent soon became visible. Whereas he was more than 50 points behind his teammate Sainz in 2019, he managed to narrow this down to just 8 points in 2020. But it was during the 2021 season where Norris showed amazing skills. He managed to score 4 podiums, held off Bottas during Monza to secure the win for his teammate, and should have the race in Russia, were it not for the rain that befell the track a couple laps before the end of the race. Zak Brown, CEO of McLaren, knew that they have a diamond in their midst and offered Lando a contract till 2027. One of the reasons Brown offered Norris such an extensive contract is the fact that he doesn't want to lose his star driver to potentially Mercedes or Red Bull in the future. After Sainz signed for Ferrari during the 2020 season and Ricciardo failed to bring in results for McLaren during the 2021 season, Brown knew that without Norris, McLaren has to build from the ground up again. Lando signed a great contract with a great paycheck as well. Norris brings in $20 million a year, but had to leave out an exit clause. This in contrast to his driver friend Max Verstappen, who is known for adding exit clauses in case Red Bull fails to deliver a fast and reliable car. Somehow, Norris believed in the McLaren project to such an extent that he didn't think an exit clause was needed. The downside is that Norris is now stuck. McLaren failed to develop him a competitive car, and besides his 3rd place in Imola, which he managed to achieve due to a spinning Leclerc, Norris never came close to another podium again. On average, the McLaren loses between 1.3 and 1.5 seconds per lap to Red Bull and Ferrari. This is a tremendous gap to bridge that normally takes years to cross. So, was it a smart decision of Norris to sign such a long contract? For that, we have to look at the potential future options that could offer Norris a better car. In this case, only 3 teams can offer him a better car in the first place, but with Ferrari having such a young lineup, it is not reasonable to expect them to need Norris driving services in the near future. However, if we look at Mercedes, we see a different story. Hamilton still seems to enjoy himself, but at 37 years old and himself always saying that he doesn't want to race in F1 till he's 40, an option becomes available in the next couple years. Hamilton has a contract till the end of 2023. At that time, Norris is 25 and has 5 years of Formula One experience. Toto Wolff has always said to be a fan of Norris' driving style and considers him an option for the future. The other potential seat is Red Bull. Although Perez is doing better than his predecessors, his performance on regular tracks are lacking and too volatile. Perez didn't manage to stay ahead of both Mercedes drivers during the French Grand Prix, although he did have the faster car. Whereas Verstappen was managing and extending his lead easily, Perez found himself struggling. However, Perez did sign a contract till the end of 2024. That a contract doesn't always mean anything in F1 is an understatement. So when Perez keeps on disappointing the Red Bull executives, he can be demoted at a certain point. But even if he does ride till the end of 2024, Norris could have been a serious contender for that second seat. Norris and Verstappen are close friends and are expected to work well together. So there are real options for Lando to get a better seat next year, but due to his no-exit clause, all these options can be thrown down the drain. It is unexpected that any team is likely to buy out his contract. If the top teams are not an option, is there any chance for McLaren to close the gap with the top teams? McLaren struggles to find pace in two specific areas, the straights and the medium to high-speed corners. McLaren uses the Mercedes engine, who struggles to find pace on the straights. McLaren lost out over half a second alone on the straights compared to Red Bull. The updates they brought included drag reduction rear wing, a new floor, a new diffuser, and an updated side pod. This increased the downforce levels in his mid to high-speed corners, but they are still far off the pace from the top teams. As this was their last major update of the season, and many teams are still bringing updates on a regular basis, it is expected that McLaren is falling further down the field. But focusing on next year's car doesn't have to be a downside, as Ferrari proves. They started to heavily develop their 2022 car in spite of 2021's car. This focus on the future did prove to be the right choice, as Ferrari is fighting for the world title. The question is, does Lando Norris have any patience? Norris finds himself in a difficult spot. He knows that he is fast enough to win races, but he also understands that he needs a car that is competitive to the front cars. What is even more frustrating is that all his old karting rivals find themselves in competitive cars. George Russell, Charles Leclerc, and Max Verstappen all secured seats at teams that developed competitive cars. Although Russell's Mercedes is still off from Red Bull and Ferrari, their development is impressive and they are getting closer to the current two top teams. This, whereas McLaren finds themselves far off. Norris's frustration becomes more vocal and even shows signs of desperation. He understands that it is of no use to talk down on his team, but deep inside he hoped for more this year. Norris is just 23 and still has many years ahead of him, but he also knows that going to the right team at the right time is crucial. However, his contract doesn't allow him to be flexible at all. Even if spots open up at Mercedes or potentially Red Bull, Norris is stuck. It looks like he gambled all his money on one horse and lost. What do you think? Is Norris's frustration understandable? And do you think he made a mistake signing such a long contract?